The Kenya Wildlife Conservancy Association is such a great association for the community conservancies, and there's a lot ahead. The big thing is about really now going forward, working with the local communities to create space for this wildlife, to create the corridors, but we must incentivize them. We must create incentives to make it attractive for our local communities to coexist with this wildlife. Clearly, besides poaching, the other major threats that we continue to face in this country on matters of wildlife conservation and protection is really going to be space. And not just space, also the habitat itself. Because majority or the big parts of our wildlife habitats have either disappeared or they are degraded. On matters of wildlife conservation, to be honest, we've got the software bit of it, which is so key. It is the heart of it all, and this is the intelligence. And the intelligence side of it, you can use the traditional knowledge of the local communities, the elders. They have a traditional knowledge, which has been a software that can enable you know what's happening, who is involved. And so the software, being the intelligence, is so paramount on matters of conservation. And this you can only get if there's a buying in from the community, if there's a community goodwill. It's very interesting. Recently, in the recent past, we've seen communities, even northern Kenya and other parts of this country, volunteering their own members who are involved in this sort of crimes. And that's so important, when the communities volunteer, that hold on, it is so and so who is involved. And we know, and we can surrender, we can hand him over to the authorities. But they can only do that if there's a very good buying in, very good involvement of the local communities. And so that has been really been very, very, very encouraging. And that's one area that we must invest. All the poachers, all the people who poach our game, our wildlife, our elephants, they come from the communities. And so the software of intelligence needs to be entrenched into the local communities, because then this thing is a societal issue. Initially, the idea about hunting was initially just for the hunters and gatherers. It was theirs. But now look who are poaching. It has gone beyond the Ndorobos that we know initially, traditionally. Now, we don't know when the other Ndorobos from other tribes were recruited into becoming Ndorobos are now hunting and going beyond. And so I think going forward, the key issues will be community involvement in conservation, no any other option. And secondly, devising a very strong software which must be entrenched into the local communities network. We have seen increased partnership between the communities and the government, and also the private sector. And what that does is that communities and the government and the private sector and the conservation organizations come together. As you very well know, we've got a good policy, a good legislation currently on matters of wildlife conservation. It still needs to be operationalized. The government, through the Kenya Wildlife Service, I think is just trying to up the game right now, which is really encouraging. And so that's really good on that side of things, and that's quite encouraging. The other bit that has really improved over the years through partnerships, we're seeing a bit of improvement on technology, from satellite collars for our elephants, from the communication, be it digital radios for our rangers, and so we're seeing a bit of improvement right now. The government is really committed. When you look at from the president committing himself, the wildlife sector in this country has just for the first time been restructured very well, in my view. One is that all the community conservancies and all the private conservancies have come together to form a national body, a national association called Kenya Wildlife Conservancy Association that's going to serve as an umbrella. And the association of KWCA is going to be the voice of the communities, the voice of the landowners on matters of lobbying the government, either for policy or legislation or for incentives, and to be the voice of the local communities who are living with this wildlife. And so the Kenya Wildlife Conservancies Association becomes the apex of the voice of the local communities. And that is just so great, seeing all the community conservancies and private conservancies across this country, over 140, coming together and speak on common issues. The second body that has just been formed in this country, which is also quite exciting, is the Conservation Alliance of Kenya, where the conservation organizations in this country have come together to form also their body, so that they're able to talk through with the Kenya Wildlife Service or the government and the KWCA.